combat battle reports. Today we have SAGA, which is primarily a Viking game, though you can have different forces. Today, however, we do have Vikings versus Skraelings. Skraelings are the American Indians who were here during the time when the Vikings came over to North America. They're the forces we're putting up first here. They are primarily levy and warrior units. They have no Hearthguard, which are the most powerful units in the game, but they all carry bows, or at least something that they can throw at the enemy. So they're very light and can attack from a distance. This is their warlord standing atop a rock, holding the head of the last guy who called him ugly. They've all been painted by the guy who's going to be playing them, Joe Nacchio. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hi, I'm Joe Nacchio. I'm with the Dogs of War wargaming group in Burbank, California. I've been wargaming for close to 40 years now, I hate to admit that. Love all different periods, all different scales. Like every wargamer, I've got a mountain of lead yet to be painted, never will be painted. But anyway, that's a little bit about me. The game we're running today is SAGA. It's going to be a Skraeling raid on a Viking village. The Vikings have settled in Newfoundland somewhere, and this is the chance for the Skraelings to push them back into the sea. What my strategy is here is basically, he's got his bowman here, which is the only thing that can really reach out and touch me. So what I'm going to do is bring these 3 units here, try to shoot these guys off the board, then advance to a position here where I can concentrate my fire on this building where his archers are. At the same time, I plan to do a very similar move on this side and try to clean this side out and advance. If he comes out to fight me, it's going to be difficult because in a man-to-man fight, the Skraelings are usually going to lose. But that's what I'm hoping to do, is try to clean off the flanks and move towards the center.
The Skraelings are attacking a Viking settlement. Their units are primarily warriors and Hearthguard. They have very little in the way of levy and shooting. They have been painted by and will be played by Bill Witthans. Let's hear what his plan is.
Hi, I'm Bill Witthans. I, like my opponent, have been wargaming a long time. Love wargaming. I think one of the most exciting days of my life was when I walked into a hobby shop and was buying some figures, and the man asked me what kind of rules I used for these toy soldiers, and I said, really? There's rules for toy soldiers that don't involve rocks and rubber bands? And I've been wargaming ever since, and probably have about 10,000 soldiers now. I'm playing the Vikings today, and the Vikings are a very tough, heavy on melee. They like to get in and battle it. I'm defending my homes, my little encampment here on the North American continent, and I'm basically going to sit and let him come at me. All I have to do is hold these buildings until turn 6. If I can do that, I win. So Joe's going to have to come at me, but he can afford to suffer a lot of heavy casualties because more and more tribe members will be funneled in as he dies. So I've just got to hope that I can outlast him.
The units are set up on the table the way the players said they would be. The Skraelings have forces on the right and left, prepared for an attack on each flank, while the Vikings are set up in and between all of the houses for protection. Bear in mind that the hill on the opposite side of this map is also being considered a house for the purposes of this scenario. Here you can see the Skraelings set up, with the warlord on their left flank or right, and here you can see the Vikings set up along all of the houses, with their warlord on the opposite side. And the battle begins with the Skraeling rolling their dice. These dice, by the way, are custom made by Bill Witthans himself, so he's helping the enemy. Joe has some big choices to make because he can choose from either the Skraelings board or from the Vikings board. He's placing 5 on the Skraelings and 1 on the Viking. And just as he said he would, he is pushing forward his Skraelings on both flanks. Right, and then yeah, that's how much time you have. That would be awesome. The Vikings roll their dice. Bill places them on his board. He only has the 1. And he's going to shift some of his men over to his right flank and pull back the ones on the hill. So this is the board at the end of turn 1. And just as Joe said, he's going in on both flanks. Bill is reacting to his right flank, Joe's left, by pulling back slightly and putting in some reinforcements. Turn 2, and the Skraelings continue their advance on their left flank, followed by their warlord shaking that severed head high in the air. There are other flank advances as well on the building closest to them. The Viking archers come out of their building ready to fire back at the Skraelings. They fire and take out one of the Skraelings. The Skraelings continue their advance, although their left flank seems to be bypassing the hill and going around behind it where the Vikings are hiding. But it looks like the second rank is going up to take that hill. The other one is merely guarding their flank. The other flank continues to move forward right into the Viking archers. They try to throw their javelins, but the Vikings use an ability that stops them from throwing. The Viking archers fire and hit one of the Skraelings.
Choose who dies.
The Vikings behind the hill charge up there and get into contact with the Skraelings, taking it. And that's 3 Skraelings off to the happy hunting grounds. They fight back and take out one of the Vikings. But there was more damage done to the Skraelings, so they abandon the hill. Consolidating their victory, the Vikings take the hill. And this is how it looks at the end of turn 3, with Skraelings being pushed back on their left flank and still pushing forward on their right. Trying to take the hill back, the Skraelings fire with their bowmen and charge with their warriors. The Skraelings on the other side stay where they are and throw their javelins, taking out one of the Viking bowmen. Their warriors come up behind them, and they're moving around the Viking flank. They might just get up to that building. They fire their bows at the Viking bowmen. And look at those saving throws from the Vikings! They are taking major casualties this turn. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 Viking bowmen down. And now the Vikings come down off the hill into that horde of Skraelings. They're going to try to take them out the way the Vikings would, on the offensive. And it pays off as they take out 6 Skraelings, and they do so at a cost of only 1 Viking. The Vikings continue their push and take out the remaining 2 warriors from that unit. Right in front of their warlord. That is not going to look good come time for their quarterly review when they're looking for raises. And the Viking advance continues on that warlord. They charge right into him. And they take him out, so I guess the others are not going to have to worry about getting written up. And here's how it looks at the end of the turn. These Skraelings are slowly pushing up on the right. On the far right, you can see that they're slowly creeping up to that building. They may be able to do something there. Closer to the center, they are slowly whittling away the Viking archers. Meanwhile, on the left flank, they really tried to take that hill. They reached their high water mark and were pushed down. The Vikings followed up with a counterattack of their own, taking out a unit and killing the warlord. It really looks bad for the Skraelings on the left, but maybe they can do something on the right. But wait a second, it looks like the Skraelings are not completely finished on the left. The unit that had bypassed the hill is now doubling back and taking the hill from behind the Vikings. Looks like they let them counterattack so that they can get in behind them. The archers, meanwhile, are skirting further over to the side so that they can shoot at the Vikings that came down off the hill. On the other side, the Skraelings continue to whittle down the Viking archers by taking down 2 more. And shoot with more of them, and take down 2 more Viking archers. The tables might just be turning here. They charge in to finish off the archers, and take them out without receiving a single casualty. They move right on through them, and get to the edge of the building's grounds. The Vikings now counterattack with the reserves that were between the buildings,
Santa's coming.
including with Santa Claus. He's apparently a Viking.
Yes.
Look at that guy.
Here comes Santa Claus
Yeah.
to deliver a Viking present.
I look at the guy over there. Is like looking back at the camera. Don't look at the camera.
Yeah, exactly. Stop it.
Got a bad extra over there.
And the warlord comes in as well, along with his bird and his dog.
Coming in with his faithful dog, Ruff.
And the counterattack does well as they take out the entire unit, losing only 1 in the process.
Not in the back, the Skraeling.
And the Viking Hearthguard comes out from the building to attack the Skraelings that are sneaking up on them. And look at that saving throw roll. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 saves. And then a 7th. That means only 1 Skraeling dies. A total whiff by the Viking Hearthguard. And the Skraelings come back and kill 3 of them. That is the Viking heavy infantry. There's only 1 left of that unit. And that's all that was protecting that flank. The rest are with Santa in the center. The Skraelings then finish off that last Hearthguard and move into the building.
But we're in the building.
The Skraelings now have 2 of the 3 buildings. Well, a building and a hill, but 2 of the 3 objectives. They might win this game, but they're just not going to be able to take that third building. The Vikings could sit back and win this, but Bill has a different feeling about this.
It's the bottom of the sixth. The Vikings have come out. They've done really good. The Skraelings have done pretty good. They own two of the buildings. Really, all the Vikings need to do is go in here, end of game. They could do that, but that's not the Viking way.
Their warlord leads them in one final charge on the Skraelings in the building.
That's why the Vikings were always very PC.
Micmacs.
Yes.
Yes.
We're gonna go after the Micmacs, and Santa's coming with.
They take it back, and that'll do it. That's the end of the battle there.
Did you really?
Let's see what the players thought of the game.
At some point, I just had to go in without softening you up anymore.
It's really hard when I'm already in the buildings like that.
Yeah, because the turnaround, it's you're basically sixes with fours to save, and I'm still threes with fives to save. It's tough to win a scenario in this way.
Yeah, I don't think that this scenario really turns around well, and written as it is. But I'd like to see a modification. Like, instead of having a building here, have a boat.
Have a
Have the boat.
okay.
The Viking ship. So if the Skraelings get to it and spend one turn on it, they can burn it.
Well, that'll do it for us here at Command Combat Battle Reports. Thank you all for joining us. Be sure to subscribe, and happy gaming, everybody!